We only use this one. Yeah. Good afternoon, good morning, members that is in the chamber as well as those that are online. Good morning to the Acting Minister, Anru Mare, as well as HOD Advocate Pillay. Good morning to Mr. Simeon George, as well as all the other officials. My name is Regan Allen, Chairperson for the Standing Committee on Community Safety, Cultural Affairs and Sport. Next to me is Mr. Wasim Matthews, our Procedural Officer, together with Mary Ann Burgess. We also have IT support for those members and public that is logged in on MS Teams. Please feel welcomed. Today we are discussing the Western Cape Appropriation Bill, specifically to vote for on community safety. I'll allow members to introduce themselves for the record. First, those in the chamber, then those online, and then we will proceed to the department.
Thank you. Good morning, Ricardo Mackenzie.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and the department, Mesuli Kama.
Good morning, dear department.
Good morning, members. We have received an apology for Member Ferlin Christians as a permanent member on this committee. I now allow the Minister for introduction and HOD together with the officials before we go into the opening remarks.
Good morning, Chair, and all the members of the Standing Committee. As you all know, I'm Acting Minister, Honourable Marie, and I'm going to ask HOD Pillay to introduce the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning, Honourable Chair and members. I'm Yashina Pillay, the Head of Department for Community Safety. I will allow the team members to introduce themselves. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson and honourable members. My name is Lindy Govender. I'm the Chief Director of Programme 1.
Good morning, Chair members. I'm David Kutsi. I'm the Chief Director of Programme 2 and 3.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sandy Sogwabi. I'm the CFO of the Western Cape Liquor Authority.
Good morning, Chairperson. Simeon George, heading up the administration at the Western Cape Liquor Authority. And
good morning, Chair. Fred Watkins, Acting Chief Director, Programme 4, Security Risk Management.
Good morning, Chair. It's Amanda Dissel, Director, Policy and Research.
Good morning, Chair and members. Peggy Similane, Policy Director, Monitoring and Evaluation.
Good morning, Chair and members. Clarissa Samuels, Assistant Director, Budget Management.
Good morning, Chair and members. Ansaf Mohammed, Director, Strategic Services and Communications.
Good morning, Chair and members. Hanbari Marshall, Director, Community Police, Community Relations.
Good morning. I'm Mohammed Friesler, CFO and Director Finance. Thanks.
Morning, Chair and members. Buffett Noble, Deputy Director, Budget Management.
Thank you so much. Is there any officials that is online?
Chairperson, just to indicate that Mr. Ronnie Kingwall is the chairperson of the board. He's online. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, I have just received a notice that we have also received an apology from Member Malikaya, who is also not here today. On that note, as I've indicated earlier on, we are discussing and deliberating on vote for community safety. And since this morning at 6:30, I've received an update that there has been 7 incidences in the Philippi and Nyanga area regarding buses being torched. We know that we have a number of, over the last financial year, a number of SAPS members that have lost their lives, law enforcement officers that are going through extreme difficult times as well. But as a province in South Africa, we have gone through storms. It's been difficult for so many people. So please allow for a 30 seconds moment of silence. Let we reflect that on the many circumstances, especially that this department plays such a key role in ensuring that our communities are safer and that we have the opportunities to live a life that we are happy with. Just for 30 seconds. Thank you so much. On that note, I think it feels like it's August for many of us. For some, it might feel like December already because the year started extremely quickly. But we are here today to discuss Vote For. I'm going to allow for introductory remarks from the acting minister as well as from the HOD. And if there's any opening remarks from Mr. Simeon George from the Western Cape Liquor Authority, thereafter we will dig deep into vote number 4 and take it from there. Thank you.
Baie dankie, voorsitter. Ek wil net sê I'm looking forward to deliberate the budget for the Department of Community Safety. It is a very, I want to say, vibrant department. And thank you for all the members or the officials that's here this morning. I really appreciate that. We can start already. Onmiddellik, my Engels is bietjie uitgeoggend. Okay.
Member Maree will like it to hear the Afrikaans. HOD.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning again. Just very few opening remarks. So as a department, we are proud of our 13th consecutive clean audit outcome. But more importantly than that, we are proud of our renewed service delivery mandate that we have undertaken as a department. In the past year, you would know we established 16 area-based teams in especially the murder stations or the areas with the highest rate of murder in the province. We will continue in this coming year to work very closely with the communities we serve, but then also the Department of Health, who is establishing the violence prevention unit. We also have enjoyed a good working relationship with our strategic safety partners, including the SAPs, CPFs, neighborhood watchers, municipalities, and importantly, the community that we serve. For us, it is now full steam ahead. The Premier did announce in his State of the Province address that the Department of Community Safety will be renamed the Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety. So we will be placing extra emphasis on our oversight role, where we will conduct 151 physical oversight inspections to stations. We will focus on rural safety, on the GBV hotspots, the stations or the police stations where there are high incidents of GBV, as well as continue monitoring SAPS's compliance with the Domestic Violence Act. We will also monitor the FCS units, the victim-friendly facilities in the upcoming year as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, HOD and Acting Minister. I want to double check, Member Bartman, are you able to hear me clearly if I'm using the one mic that's...
I'm able to hear you very clearly, Chairperson.
Baie danke. Thank you so much. Members, on that note, we have received introductory remarks from the Minister as well as the HOD. Mr. Simeon George, any remarks from your side, sir?
Chairperson, thank you very much, and very briefly. We are here this morning to indicate that we remain committed to the policy imperatives that have been set. We are mindful of our mandate of the Western Cape Liquor Authority and to what extent we are capable of contributing to the safety imperatives within that apply to the Western Cape. In that process, we are mindful that violence within the province is occasioned in many instances by the use and consumption of liquor, and that public interest and our responsibility to regulate in public interest is uppermost. And in that process, we appreciate the money or the budget allocated for us to do that going forward. Chairperson, I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, members. Before we dig into it, I do want to state that our procedural officer will be circulating a document that our committee has requested, and that legal opinion will be circulated in due course, as well as our discussion plan regarding the previous engagements that we had as a committee. I do appreciate as well that members of this committee and of this provincial parliament continue to submit parliamentary questions to the various departments, especially to community safety as well in our oversight role. So thank you so much, members. Do I see any hands for the first round? We are on page number 127, which is read in conjunction with the APP, which was not only circulated in hard copy, but also available online. I see pages 127 to 137. I will take a first round, and thereafter I will give guidance on how we will proceed depending on the flow this morning. I see Member Mackenzie, Member Kama, and Member Bartman in that order.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, we can just get an indication from the HOD, when will the department be renamed? Is that effective the 1st of April? And then on page 127, and my question relates to one of the annexes, but I'll get there later. We saw the 776 main appropriation up to 720 in the outer years. If we can just get an explanation for that. I did saw in the annexes about the law enforcement enhancement officers. And then with regards to on page 128, the continued deployment, how do we envisage the oversight working with the relationship with SAPS? And this perhaps a question to the minister going forward, working with SAPS and the LEAP officers from the city of Cape Town. How do you envisage the relationship going forward for the next financial year? And then with regards to the oversight, because our HOD did mention the 151 visits that you like to do, how do you envision that going forward? And do you have the staff capacity to visit all the 151 police stations? And on page 129, Chairperson, the funding we made available to professionalized neighborhood watches, can the HOD or someone in the team just indicate that 5.7 million rand in the new financial year, will this be transfers to the neighborhood watches, or will it be more training for the neighborhood watches? And on that note, how many times do we train our neighborhood watches? Do we do training every 2 years or every 3 years, just to capacitate them more? And then on just the bottom of the page of 129, the 6.9 million for the resourcing of law enforcement reaction unit. If you can just give more details on those reaction units, Chairperson. And then on page 130, for someone in the department that works with the K9 unit, Chairperson, I'm not sure if the committee previously got that list of the municipalities where these K9 units are situated. If they don't have that list, if we can, because obviously I'm a new member to the committee, if we do have that list. And then the second bullet there, provision of latest technology relating to safety and security. What technology are we referring there? And then on the bottom of page 130, it says the department, during the period under review, the department visited SAPS police stations to monitor compliance. I presume there was a report done on that. If the department can perhaps just, if they don't have it with them, just supply us with a report on that was done on the period after review. And then on page 131, during this period, the security support team continued to provide assistance. How big is the security support team in the department? If you can just get more details on that. And that, Chairperson, is my questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Member Mackenzie. Our capable procedural officer already coined a new acronym based on the Premier's State of the Province address, and he says from DOCS, it's basically to POCS, from policing oversight and community safety. So maybe the adjustment comes at a good time. Member Kama.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Now I know why Member Mackenzie wanted to be in the chamber today. Could see with the number of questions from the start. Chair, my questions, I think one, I wanted to latch on the first question that Member Mackenzie asked, and which you also now just touched on in terms of the name change. I just want to understand what is the significance. I think the Premier mentioned this. So what is the significance of this name change? My question is on page, my other question is on page 131, Chair. I want to check on the issue of APTs. I want to check if there are APTs in the areas of Elsis River, Samora, Manenberg, and your Philippi East. Then my other question is on page 131, paragraph where they talk about the LEAP, the partnership of the city of Cape Town, the LEAP program, sorry. So, and I'm going to link this question, Chair, with your permission, to a question I would have had on 144 and 133. I know we're dealing with pages before that. Because it says the partnership with the city of Cape Town and SAPS saw the deployment of law enforcement officers to high crime and priority areas as part of the LEAP. Now, my question in that, Chair, is to understand, because when I was reading this, connecting it with the service delivery risks that are identified in 133, specifically the one on organizational structure not aligned to the department's new way of work and service delivery mandate. And if you read at 144, Chair, I have a difficulty with understanding the location of that program of LEAP itself. It's at sorry for that delay. It's under safety partnerships, if I'm correct. But I have a difficulty with that, Chair, because the safety partnerships, it's in terms of your analysis at 143. It is to increase safety by means of sustainable partnerships with community-based organizations. Now, the partnership of the LEAP with the city is that partnership with community-based organizations, because my understanding is that sub-program, it's for the partnership we should be creating with community-based organizations working for safety. So I want to understand the location of that LEAP program, and perhaps understand, Chair, through you, as to what exactly in terms of this department and the legislation that governs the work of the department, what informs the basis of this partnership with the LEAP program. So that is the question. Then the other question that I have, Chair, on 131, when it talks about the court watching brief program focuses on courts in areas with highest murder rate and gang violence and gender-based violence. Yeah, what I want to understand is this always been the case when this unit was established? Was it established to focus only in these areas that have high murder rate? Because there might be a case of interest in the rural part, one town that is isolated in the province that does not have any of these, or it does not form part of being a high gender-based violence area and all of those. But does this mean that those communities would not be serviced by the court watching brief? And if such a if it is such, is this informed by incapacity perhaps in the office to service the whole province in terms of the court watching brief? I will have those questions for now, Chair. Thanks.
Advocate Bartman.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just two short questions from my side. My first question relates to page 128, but it also speaks to page 132. It's regarding when the department gives safety monies to the different districts. And similar to all the districts, the department obviously last year also gave money to the Central Karoo. And I don't know if money will be given to districts again this year specifically, but I do see that it indicates that the partnership with the district safety plans and JDMAs are continuing. But Chairperson, last year, the Central Karoo money that went to Laingsburg municipality specifically, the money was divided up into the 4 wards. So there's only 4 wards in Laingsburg, and the money was divided up into those 4 wards. And out of those 4 wards, 3 wards, those 3 councillors decided to wait until after the election for the establishment of the new ward committees in order to consult the different wards in how to spend that money going forward, because obviously there's no certainty when it comes to an election cycle. One ward, which was Ward 4, that particular councillor decided to spend their money before the election, and the people they appointed with that money specifically in the name of safety was all their family members, and the names of the people are it's not a secret. Everyone knows who has been appointed. And at the time I reported the matter to both the minister and yourself as chair, and the minister indicated to me that the department, that he was going to request the department to launch an investigation, because the money wasn't necessarily to just appoint people. The money was supposed to go to items in order to make the ward or the area a safer place. And I just wanted to find out how far the department is into looking into that matter, because the community was in uproar because of that, and they still need answers. My second question is on page 133. It's just in terms of procurement, I see that the previous transversal security framework agreement is coming to an end and a new framework agreement is being put into place. And I just would like to know what exactly this entails. And I know that in framework agreements, you obviously have a new call off. So once the new framework agreements in place, they'll call off for security agreements. If the CFO can just give us some detail on how that call off process will work. Will the call off process within the framework agreement also be competitive? Will it be a rotational basis? If we can just have some detail on that, please. And whether we are able to just get a copy of that framework agreement once it is the new financial year is in place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Member Bartman. Members, I have a feel for how it will proceed today. So we will hand over directly to the department in order to respond, and then I will allow for follow-up in this regard, and then one opportunity for the first 10 pages that were mentioned, if we are able to ask any follow-up questions directly to those first 10 pages. I hope that that is in order.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member Mackenzie, for the question. I'm going to answer partly of this, and then I ask the HOD to do the rest. Fortunately, we have a good relationship and an open communication with the city. And then we do have a very good professional relationship with our general PC, General Patekile. So that helps a lot for us, for SAPS, for our oversight, as well as our LEAP officers in the city. Thank you. I ask HOD in the department.
Thank you, Minister. So I am going to attempt to answer most of them, but if I forget anything, if the members can please remind me, and I will hand over to the team as well. So the first question, Honourable Member Mackenzie, in terms of the renaming process, the APPs were on my table the day of the SOPA, and I thought we can just change the name, and I changed it only to hear that it is quite a long process. There has to be a request, I'm told, to the presidency to actually change the name of the department. So I'm not sure how long that will take, but we can also find out and give you some feedback in that regard. In terms of the funding for LEAP, yes, there has been there's an increase in an allocation for the outer years. For the program to continue and for the department to fund the program. In terms of the relationship with SAPS, as Minister has alluded to, we continue to enjoy a good relationship with the SAPS, especially with the station commanders on the ground. The LEAP officers are working under the command and control of the SAPS. And we are very grateful to that partnership that has been in place between the three spheres of government. The Department of Community Safety is very involved in holding that space and ensuring that there's good governance in the manner in which we interact with each other. And so I think that good partnership has borne results in relation to the integrated planning in those priority areas, and also to an extent resulted in the reduction in the murder rate, which we have seen. So we will continue in enjoying that good relationship. However, there is an understanding that although we enjoy a cordial relationship and work well together, we also have an oversight function over the police. And if there are any issues that would be highlighted in terms of the 151 police station inspections, we will continue to point that out to SAPS, also to national on various platforms. We have a HOD's forum, there's MINMEC, where we engage with national SAPS as well as the local SAPS to improve services of the police in the province. In terms of our inspections, we proved as a department that we can be very agile and adaptable. We proved it in in this current year, where we took on a service delivery mandate. We established the area-based teams. It was not in our makeup to do that, but we were able to reorganize ourselves, reassign our staff to that end, and we are going to do the same. So we have not asked at this time for any additional capacity. We've already worked out amongst ourselves. We're going to do 38 police inspections per quarter. Our new director, Mr. Simalani, is here. So it's all systems go. We're already engaging with our personnel as well, all our departmental personnel on our new or refocused direction in relation to all that I mentioned earlier on. So we will be reassigning responsibilities. And it was also pointed out our organizational structure. Yes, this department's organizational structure was approved in 2009. We have been engaging with OD to change our structure over the previous few years. However, due to the commitment of and dedication of our staff, they are willing to take on different responsibilities and avail themselves without there being a formal change in a job description. We usually just change it in a performance agreement. We add different KPIs, etc. And we've been very fortunate in that way that our staff members have been so responsive to all the new work that we undertake. In terms of the neighborhood watches, the 5.7 million, and my colleagues can add, does cover training. It covers support in the form of starter kits, etc., and funding as well. But when I hand over to the colleagues, they can also add on. The 6.9 million for the reaction units, I'm going to ask the Chief Director, David Kutsia, to speak to that and to the K9 units. The K9 units are established in the Overstrand, in the city of Cape Town and the Swartland municipality. We will be rolling it out to Mossel Bay in the upcoming year, but he can also add to that. The technology in relation to safety and security, I'm going to ask the Acting Chief Director, Mr. Watkins, to come in there. In terms of the question on the compliance in relation to the oversight that we conducted of the police stations, we can make available the report. We worked very closely with the SAPS and the Department of Health, especially during the COVID times, where we developed OHS protocols for the SAPS, which resulted in the police stations not being closed for an extended period of time. The decontamination happened promptly. At the beginning, you would note police stations were closed for a number of days, and towards the end, they were opened on the very same day. So we developed those OHS protocols together with SAPS, and our provincial commissioner at that time was General Matakata or Makabudi, who actually then also presented that to national SAPS as a best practice for SAPS dealing with COVID. In terms of our security support team, I'll ask Chief Director Watkins to come in there. Honorable Member Kama, in terms of the significance of the name change, I think we have been given our marching orders to place additional emphasis on our oversight work and our constitutional mandate as a department. So we're going to be focusing very seriously on those oversight inspections, on our policing needs and priorities, on the GBV hotspots and rural safety, etc. So our oversight is re-emphasized, and I think that's the reason for the name change. In terms of the area-based teams, you asked about Elsie's River, Samora Machel, and Philippi East. So there is an area-based team in Samora Machel. We have included Samora Machel now and Philippi East as new areas. We've expanded on the original 11 areas to 13 areas. However, we have not neglected Elsie's River and Manenberg because there is a reaction unit of LEAP members, 66-member reaction unit that we deploy as the need arises. We had the team deployed at Elsie's River when the shootings occurred at Manenberg. On that very same day, we engaged with the SAPS and engaged with the city, and then the deployment happens when the executive director of the city and myself agree. We get a request either from the SAPS or from the teams on the ground, and then if both of us jointly agree, the officers are deployed to a specific area. So that reaction unit is able to move around and respond to any flare-ups in any of the areas throughout the city. In terms of the partnerships and the LEAP money being under that directorate or component, so as part of the LEAP program forms part of the bigger area-based team methodology, where we're bringing in law enforcement, violence prevention, and social cohesion in a local area space where our partners are community organizations in those areas. So whether it be CPFs, neighborhood watches, or other community structures or members in that particular area, the LEAP is just one component of our response in which we are creating safety together with our partners, whether they be formalized in the form of CPFs or neighborhood watches, but on the ground we are engaging with different role players in those ABT areas. So it is fitting that the LEAP funds will be attached to that program as well. It's not law enforcement in isolation to a bigger strategy of creating safety in our communities, underpinned by especially violence prevention, but then also us looking at environmental design, crime prevention through environmental design, looking at spatial planning, infrastructure, housing, all of that. Obviously, it's not just about having a law enforcement presence in a particular area. We want to change things on the ground and have a long-term impact as well. My colleagues can add if I've missed anything. And then in terms of Member Bartman, Honourable Member Bartman's question, Member Bartman, we immediately had our internal control unit investigate the matter. We can make available to you the outcome of that investigation. The internal control unit actually did not just then investigate funds transfer to the Central Karoo, but we did it through all the district municipalities, because we want to ensure that our money is being utilized for the purposes in which it was intended, and there's proper fiscal controls in place by any institution or organization that receives funding from the department. So there has been a report that was compiled in that regard. In terms of the security framework, I'm going to ask the Acting Chief Director to come in, and perhaps the CFO as well. And then Member Kama, sorry, I forgot about the court watching briefs and the question you asked in that regard. The main focus of our court watching briefs program is the murder stations, the GBV hotspots. But they have, on occasion, when there is a request or there is a high-profile matter, would monitor a case, any case throughout the province. So if there are any matters to be monitored that is brought to our attention, we immediately do so. Thank you, Honourable Chair. I'll pause there, and perhaps maybe I can hand over to the Chief Director, David Kutsia first, then the Chief Director, Acting Chief Director, Fred Watkins, and the CFO, if he'd like to come in, and any of the other team members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the reaction unit, so as was mentioned, in the city, we've got the LEAP reaction team. So we actually learned a valuable lesson from that and looked at establishing a reaction team in the Overstrand municipality, but it's for the district, whole district. So there will be additional resources available in Swartland and Overstrand for those districts to assist SAPS with dealing with crime issues then in that district. So they will also then be deployed. So each of those units will have 20 members, and then they'll have resources then to assist with operations. With regards to the K9, we've also got in Swartland and Overstrand K9 units, and then we support the city K9 unit with money so they can actually link them to provincial traffic at the way bridges. So they also then resources available for operations and roadblocks that provincial traffic do. The third unit that we basically engaged with is for Mosselbaai. It's a K9 unit that we actually had the meeting yesterday to start the establishment of the K9 unit. Just to note that Swartland and Overstrand, we tested two different models. So in Swartland, for example, the K9 dog units are leased from a private company, but the law enforcement is then trained, and then but that saves on the maintenance cost of the dogs and the vet and stuff, where Overstrand municipality physically bought dogs. They've got a K9 unit on a farm, and then they physically deploy. The latter we find is a better model. And so we'll then with Mosselbaai explore which would be the better model going forward. So we looked also strategically, the Swartland was based on the N7, and they work right up to the Vredendal N7 Weybridge. And then Overstrand was also focused on the rural safety issues faced in that district, and then also with the poaching and coastal resources that are being stripped. So that was the focus. And then the Mosselbaai unit will also then look at the whole into Knysna Plate, that whole area function in that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, HOD. Firstly, in terms of the neighbourhood watches, yes, the professionalisation is, as HOD said, it's for funding and starter kits, and then also training programs that we roll out. We actually have a suite of training that we develop every year that we send out at the beginning of the financial year to all the structures. And then we work on a first come, first serve basis for all the neighbourhood watches to give them an equal opportunity. And that suite would then include things like basic first aid, level 1 first aid, mediation, conflict management, financial management for non-financial managers. And over the past year, we've actually had 70 training sessions with different neighborhood watches in attendance. In terms of the technology, yes, our program is responsible for the integration of technology and physical security in the CBD. And we run it under the banner of what we call GovSentry. Currently, we're automating all our security processes, going to a paperless system. And then also we've been mandated in the Rural Safety Summit to look at how do we integrate all the technology in the rural areas to one central point, and we are busy with the research in that space. In terms of this question on the security support team, we currently have 64 members in the support teams. They're Western Cape government security employees, and they work in teams of 4 on a 24/7 basis. Then the question on the transversal security framework, it is administered by Provincial Treasury, and it's on a rotational value-based system. So there are currently 18 security service providers on that framework, and they rotate as per the value of the call-offs. So for instance, if one has a R1 million call-off, they would go down to number 18, and then the second one would move up to number 1 as the call-offs happen, because it's throughout the province and through all 13 departments. So yeah, I don't know, CFO, if you want to add something on the transversal framework. I think I answered everything. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. Maybe just to add with regards to the contract itself, the suite of service providers, as Mr. Watkins has mentioned, numbering 18 in total, they are actually pre-vetted and pre-qualified in terms of their size and then also their capability based on the areas that they can service, and also the level of security standard that they can manage. So the call-off then is based on the value, and as mentioned, it is if one company gets a contract and that contract gets concluded, then they move to the bottom of the list, so that each and every service provider in that suite of contractors or service providers, as it was, ultimately gets a chance to provide that service for the provincial government. Thank you.
Members, that is the first round of questions. Is there any follow-up question? I have a number on my side. I see Member Mackenzie and Member Bartman and Member Kama.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just on the municipalities, I think it's Overstrand and Swartland with the reaction/K9 units. I just wanted to get an understanding what informs that decision. And the reason I'm asking, many years ago, myself and Minister Murray actually went to Beaufort West, and the SAPs had a problem there, because by the time the trucks get to Mossel Bay or Overstrand or Swartland, that means the drugs are already in the Western Cape, or the illegal substances or whatever are already in the Western Cape. And SAPs needed support with the K9 units at Beaufort West, at Vredendal, not because once it's halfway in the Western Cape, it's already here. So what technical detail informed me to have it in Overstrand and Swartland and not at Beaufort West at the beginning of Plettenberg Bay, at the beginning of Vredendal, to avoid drugs? And because 90% of drugs don't get manufactured in the Western Cape, they get smuggled in. So why don't we have it there to avoid those drugs ultimately getting to the Western Cape, as opposed to having it halfway in the Western Cape and then the stuff's already in the Western Cape? So what technical data informs that? Because subs at the time when we visited Marais subs, I think there was 1,028 trucks, but my numbers might be a few out here, enter the Western Cape on a 24 hours, but they can only search a small percentage of them because they had like 10 dogs or something like that. So yeah, so I'm just trying to understand what informed that decision and not having them right at the Western Cape to avoid those drugs getting into the Western Cape. Thank you.
Member Bartman.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, in terms of the investigation report regarding the safety money for the districts and specifically Laingsburg, if we could please just get that report regarding Ward 4, because every ward received about R1 million, and it's just unfathomable if that money is not being spent on safety. But also, Chair, in that light, if there are reports on how the districts are spending that money that the department is giving them, I think there are probably many other constituency heads within our provincial parliament who'd also like to know how some of that money is being spent, because we don't always get some of the detail when we ask it on the ground. So I would really appreciate that specifically. And also, just with the framework agreements, I wanted to find out when the contractors are obviously appointed, the 17 or 18, and for the calling off for the different reasons in the different departments, how does that operation work? And the reason I'm asking for that specifically is because in a small rural area like Laingsburg, there's no private security companies. So even if you have an alarm system in your house, if the alarm goes off, there's no one to come and check on your house at all. So you must just go to your neighbor or shout or do something, or even if you're not at home, there's no one that you can run to. And I know of real world examples within December where people were essentially didn't know what to do because people were breaking into their homes, and even though they have alarms, they have no one to run to. So how do this framework agreement then work operationally, and are they able to assist in areas specifically where there are no private security companies to essentially fill that gap within the safety market? Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Chair, and let me also appreciate the responses. The first one, Chair, for me, I think it's more of a clarity on the response around the APTs. I think the HOD was saying it's only ELSIS, and so is the HOD saying we don't have a APT in the areas of ELSIS and Manenberg? Because as the HOD mentioned later on, the deployment of LEAP can't be a replacement of APTs if we are saying APTs have to fulfill the issue of law enforcement, the issue of the social factors, and the issue of the prevention strategies. So that's just the clarity. The second one, Chair, follow up is on the question I was asking about the issue of the name change. And if I may, Chair, I doubt if really a name change will address what the HOD is saying the name change is for. Because if you look at the budget itself, you would find that most of the budget is not spent on the core functions and main services of the department. And if you look at the programs, you would find that the 3 programs, in actual fact, the only increase that is there is the increase for the LEAP program. The other 3 program budget is decreasing. There's no increase. And if you check at the other function, which is important, of creating strategic safety partnerships and capacitating safety partners such as community policing forums, we all know that, I don't know if the department can give clarity in terms of the decision not to fund CPFs. How are you going to capacitate CPFs if you do not fund them? So there's nothing we're doing in addressing what is the core functions, and as the budgets have decreased. That's the follow up that I have around that. The name change, you can't just change a name. It must speak to, because I don't know who's confused about the role of the department. I don't know whether it's the public or who, but the belief is that the department knows what the department is supposed to do in terms of its mandate. So a name change, what is this name change going to change really? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Member Kama. HOD and Minister, if I can jump in terms of, I do want to welcome the increase in the budget, firstly. And I note that the net increase to LEAP and the understanding of our transfer payment agreement with the City of Cape Town, and that we are now expanding it to areas on page 131 in terms of Swartland, Overstrand municipalities, which include Ceres, Malmesbury, and Grabouw, and the training of Metro Police training colleges for those officers. How will we cater to the Beaufort West one in terms of training specifically? I didn't pick that one up in the votes specifically, but I do also want to, and I'm not sure if I must ask the department this one. It latches onto a broader discussion around neighborhood watches, and I welcome the increase to funding towards neighborhood watches, but I want to, regarding the understanding of docs and SAPs on the CIB program, has there been any engagement with SAPs regarding the community in blue, and how does docs foresee that particular program incorporating into the wider scheme of safety? Then also, I think it might be useful. I think myself and member Kama was at the Overstrand launch of the K9 unit. I was also in the Swartland one. If we can get a video of the Overstrand one, I think we have new members on our committee, and if that can be circulated regarding the simulation of the K9 unit and how the K9 unit operate. But then on that one, there's a word, and I'm not sure, because Afrikaans eerste taal, there's a word on 130 that says establish and support existing K9. Are we establishing any further K9 units, and in which areas, which links to the question that member Mackenzie asked. And then HOD on page 128, I do value and see the benefit of our policing needs and priorities report, and that engagement that we have with SAPs, where we are able to attempt to fix those inefficiencies, but are we able to hear of that process? I also think members of this committee will find that helpful. Are we potentially moving away from a desktop analysis into a more where we could go to the regions? I think in fostering the relationships with community members, that will also be a key in terms of the policing needs and priorities, where we are able to actually go back to communities and say it has been included. These are the action steps. These are the replies that we have received from the South African Police Service, for example. That's what I have for now. Members, I am going to close the first 10 pages.
Chair, my hand is up.
Oh, Member Van Vogel, so sorry, I did not see your hand. Member Van Vogel, we are on pages 129 to 127 to 137. You are more than welcome to ask questions directly on those pages. And thereafter, we will then close the first 10 pages. But if there's any specific follow-up, then I will entertain that particular question. But Member Van Vogel.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Chairperson, mine is on page 128. The third bullet, point of reference, the department will continue to drive the reduction of alcohol harm through amendments to the Western Cape Liquor Act. So what I want to know is, when will the alcohol harm reduction white paper be developed into an act? Then also on page 128, Chair, the fourth bullet, the point of reference, support local municipalities in the province with the establishments of reaction units. So what I want to know from the department, what are these reaction units, and in which municipalities have they been established, and what support is the department giving to each municipality? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, on page 137, just one question. Thank you. I just wanted to find out from this is the Western Cape Liquor Authority. There's obviously been a reduction in the I think 3 million in total, 5%. How will that impact on your work? And then, sorry, just second question on that. And this one is to the department. Category A transfers to local municipality. I think that additional, that 220 million, I think that's for the LEAP officers, if I make, that probably makes sense from the 170 to 400 million. But if we can just get an indication, the reduction from category B and C, 5 million less in the previous financial year, and then category C, 5 million less in the next financial year. You can just get that, please. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Mackenzie. We'll hand over to the department.
Thank you, Chair and members. I will start with the questions in terms of the K9 unit establishment, and my colleague Chief Director Kutsia can come in as well. I think the main consideration for us, Honourable Member Mackenzie, is the capacity of the local municipality to actually render that K9 unit service. So that has been the main driver that informs our decision. There was already capacity in the city, in the Swartland area, etc. So they are able to do so because it's not the department running it or the SAPs, but the actual local municipality. And not all the municipalities are actually geared towards that end. So we are now assisting the Mossel Bay. So it is in Overstrand and Swartland and the city, and we will be assisting in the Mossel Bay municipality to set up the K9 unit. But they have to have some expertise and also infrastructure in place to be able to do that. However, we do note the concern in terms of Beaufort West and that area, and the Chief Director can speak more about that, but the idea would be to also then cover the N1 area going forward to roll that out as well. And Member Bartman's question in terms of the report and the utilization of the funds, Member Bartman, it was 100,000 per ward, not $1 million. And we can make available the report as well as all the safety plans of the district municipalities, because it's the safety plans that contain the detail of how they're going to be utilizing the funding. In terms of the security framework, I will ask the Acting Chief Director to come in. The security framework covers, amongst others, access control for Western Cape government buildings and facilities. However, I would trust that if we have a presence in a specific community and there is an incident, that their presence there can be of some assistance in that space. Member Kama, in terms of your question of Elsie's River and Manenberg, yes, there are no ABTs established in Elsie's River and Manenberg. However, as I indicated, we responded with having the reaction unit deployed there. We can provide a list of the areas where we have area-based teams. They are mainly based on former years' murders statistics, and that's what determined our deployment to those areas. In terms of the name change and the allocation of the budget across the programs, our main cost driver to deliver on oversight is our cost of employment. So it's not transfers, because we utilize our own personnel to do that. And 43% of our budget is our cost of employment. So we have never physically visited and done inspections at all police stations previously. We will then now utilize our current personnel to do so. So it's not transfers out, but actually utilizing of our human resources to be able to do that. Our staff members, many of them are trained and equipped to do that in police monitoring and evaluation, and they will do that. And we will then, as I indicated, repurpose some of our other staff members who've already shown a willingness to be part of the oversight inspections, etc. In terms of funding to CPFs, we have not stopped funding CPFs. we have stopped the expanded partnership program funding model, but the department continues to fund CPFs that have completed AGMs, have received a certificate, and if they apply for project funding. So we continue to do so, but we also envisage the CPFs and other structures playing a greater role in the ABT space, and therefore we funded ABT interventions in communities that or are going in the process of doing so, that where there are transversal initiatives in a community that would not just benefit a CPF's project, but look at what the greater needs of the community are in that particular area to have a greater impact. Honourable Chair, I know you asked something about Beaufort Western training, and I'm so sorry I didn't catch that, but if you could please assist me there. In terms of the community in blue, we do know the community in blue is a program of the National Department of SAPS. Our Western Cape Community Safety Act also recognizes CPFs and neighborhood watchers. We have agreed with the Provincial Commissioner that there will not be conflicts in local areas. And if there are any incidents of gatekeeping in any way, if that can please be brought to the attention of the department, and we will immediately engage with the Provincial Commissioner about it. We do understand that it is a similar a project launched by National, but we have an agreement that we will work together on the ground with all the structures, working together with the SAPS, and that is our commitment together with that of the PC. In terms of the K9 units, I think I've covered that somewhat. There is the K9 unit in the Overstrand. The new K9 unit is Mossel Bay. So we've done Overstrand, the City of Cape Town, and Swartland are current. The new is Mossel Bay, and then our consideration also to the N1 for us to roll out to that. In terms of the policing needs and priorities, Honourable Chair, yes, COVID forced us to desktop exercise. The policing needs and priorities are a very important component of our oversight, and we definitely want to also get our timing right, so we're able to influence SAP's resources to the province, but also have National take into consideration our input, both on the inspections, our policing needs and priorities, our oversight of FCS units, etc., and have that considered when there's a resource allocation, but also when policy is developed for the Western Cape. So we will be doing that differently. Honourable Member Windfocal, in terms of the liquor amendments, we are going to be presenting our proposed first phase amendments to our cabinet sitting. But the liquor amendments we envisage will be in place by 2023, because there has to be a public participation process as well. So it's the first phase, and we are already busy then with the second phase of amendments as well. Honourable Chair, I know your question on Beaufort West, if you can help me there, but I think if I can also then hand over to the Acting Chief Director, Mr. Watkins, to speak about the functions of the security officials that are on the ground. I think I've answered most of the other questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, HOD. Member Bartman, I'm going to give a quick overview of how the operational process works with the framework. A department would contact Provincial Treasury indicating their need for security at a specific facility. Provincial Treasury will then request us as Department of Community Safety to do what is called a safety and security risk assessment, which we then do at the facility itself. And part of that is to give the facility a specific risk rating from high to low, and also identifying what type of service is needed at that facility. On the framework, there are four different types of services, which is physical security, monitoring, CCTV monitoring, armed response, and then what we call I almost want to say a reaction security. In other words, you're more elevated than physical security. We will then identify what type of service is needed, as well as if it's physical security, how many officials are needed, and where they are supposed to be placed as part of that assessment. That report will then go to Provincial Treasury, and at that point, in terms of the allocation, our processes stop. Provincial Treasury and the department, the respective department would then communicate with each other and do the call-off as was explained earlier. Once the call-off is made, we are notified as a department which service provider will be doing the service at that specific facility, and we start then almost an oversight process, what we call safety and security evaluations, where we would then go and visit the service, or at least the facility, to see if the service has been delivered according to the contract, and then also indicate if any to the respective department if any penalties if we find a lack of service delivery. We will then notify the department of by a report what we find during our evaluations. We do try to get to every facility at least once every 6 months. COVID did complicate that, but we are back to full strength and doing it now. I must also note that, and coincidentally, Central Karoo, you're quite right, they do not have any providers on the framework. However, in the initial communication with Provincial Treasury by the respective department, Provincial Treasury will then indicate to that specific department there are no facilities, or at least providers in that area on the framework. They would need to go out on an open tender in order to do their to acquire security. We, however, still, once that has been done, or at least once that communication has happened, we then still go and do our safety and security risk assessment, and then the post-award SSEs to assist the department. I trust that answers your question, Member Bartman. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Member Windvogel, I wanted to double check your side. Are you covered?
Chairperson, I didn't hear anything about the reaction unit. Perhaps I missed that part, but I'm not clear on, I didn't hear anything on that question of mine.
Thank you so much, Member Windvogel. HOD will handle that one soon. Maybe I wasn't too clear earlier on in my own question as well, HOD, and I think it might help me as well as the committee. So we have a, what do we call, a transfer payment agreement with the City of Cape Town. Cape Town becomes, the city becomes the beneficiary. So the funds are paid over, the training happens, etc. In terms of us reaching over to areas like Ceres and Ceres, I wrote it down, Ceres, as well as Grabouw, Beaufort West, etc. Do we have such agreements in place with those municipalities as well? Because I note on page 131, it says the department formalized its agreements with the Metro Police Training College and Chrysalis to train law enforcement officers for the reaction units of the Swartland and Overstrand municipalities. To ensure that those are in place, and if we can hear a bit about that, I think that was the gist of just from my own understanding. And members, may I mention at this stage, if I can request even at this stage, if we are able to get the information on when during this upcoming financial year, the Mossel Bay K9 unit will be established. I have had engagements with Mossel Bay, and I'm hoping that the committee will be able to do an oversight visit to Mossel Bay if we are able to potentially connect it with that launch, because I know they have a joint operation center in Mossel Bay as well between CPF, Neighborhood Watch, the municipality, and SAPS. And I think that could be a model that the committee will be interested in. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. So in terms of the reaction units, Honourable Member Windvogel, the reaction units are established in Swartland in the Overstrand local municipalities. Apology for forgetting that. I think there was also a question in relation to the reduction of the amounts to the municipalities. So some of the municipalities were unfortunately unable to spend their full allocation, and it's due also, and I think we need to take responsibility in terms of the timing of when the monies are transferred, and we are also addressing that. So because the financial years of the municipalities are not aligned to the financial years of the department, when we pay over the money, it would be later in the year, and they are unable to then spend the money by their financial year end and then our financial year end. But we have committed as a department that by the 1st of July of every year, which is their financial year, we will ensure that money is transferred over. So we need to change the manner in which we are doing things. I trust the team's very busy working on it right now. So everything is in place, including us gazetting it, and then we just ensure then in that early July the monies are paid over to give the municipalities maximum time to spend. So what we did then, because they were unable to spend all that money, we utilized some of the money towards the reaction units and the establishment of the reaction units, because in the previous year, this was not part of our baseline funding. So we're looking at doing that. In terms of the agreements with the other municipalities, I will hand over to the Chief Director, David Kutsia. He can also speak about the Mossel Bay, the K9 unit, and when that will be established. And also I've asked him to speak to support that we currently provide to CPFs as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So with regards to CPF support, for each CPF we provide, there's available, they can apply for project funding of 5,000 Rand to do projects. So once they've gone through the process and they are functioning, then there's that access to project funding. And what we've also done is we procured a service provider to then do training. So this year we did meeting skills and how they actually so we're planning then next year to look at mediation and conflict. So we speak to SAPs and the CPFs and we get a needs basis, and based on that we will procure a provider then to do training. So with the transfer payments we have in place is with the 5 district municipalities. We have got a business plan with them, and then that's for the whole district. And then there's a TPA that regulates the transfer payment. Maybe also to note then what we also, the first round when we established the K9, as HED mentioned the criteria, we did look at Beaufort West. So we actually spoke to Provincial Traffic, we spoke to SAPs, we spoke to the role players, and the municipality at that stage did not have the capacity to actually deal with a dog unit. They're not working, they haven't permanent members, and so what we've assisted Beaufort West and Laingsburg municipality with is law enforcement officers. We're actually paying now for law enforcement officers in those 2 municipalities and assisting. So we will relook at Beaufort West again, but at the moment the funding or the capacity is not there to physically deal with the K9 unit. Yeah, I think thank you, Chair.
Honourable Chair, if I can just add, in the areas where we have the reaction units and the K9 units, we also transfer funds and have TPAs with those local municipalities as well.
Chair, yeah, sorry, I forgot the Mossel Bay. We had our first meeting yesterday, so we'll go now into the project planning. So that's basically we have to do the recruitment, we have to procure dogs, so it could take 3 to 4 months to get to a launch stage. But Jennifer Rensel is a dedicated person, and he'll be assisting them then with the establishment of it. But we'll keep the committee up to date on the progress.
Thank you so much, members. We have seen.
Still the Western Cape Liquor Authority question.
Oh yes, Mr. George, how can I forget you?
Chairperson, thank you very much. In response to Member Mackenzie's question, you may note when you look at the work, there's a reduction in relation to the revised estimate. So I think that is important to know, that although there's a slight increase, probably in real terms it's not an increase. So in terms of how it will impact on our service delivery, basically then we are still budgeted in terms of what was planned in terms of the MTF. As far as the allocation that we received that pushed that amount up in terms of the revised estimate, those projects that was specified for that was the online application platform and the walk-in center that we are developing for the application process. Chair, I trust that answers the question. Thank you.
We are looking forward to visiting your offices very soon. Hopefully not on a Friday, but we will, sir. Member Kama and myself also attended the Imbizo in Manenberg last week, and I was so delighted, Minister, to see that you have also had engagements. And I noted 4 arrests in Manenberg. A number of suspects were interrogated and questioned. Drugs was confiscated from the area. So we are seeing when we are working together with SAPS and community members. Members, I am going to close off the first 10 pages and quickly table the next 10 pages. Is there any particular questions? And I will at this time, please, if we are able to use a 2-minute time allocation for our next set of questions. I see Member Bartman. I see Member Kama in that order.
Chairperson, can I just quickly ask a question? Our next set of questions bring us up to almost the annexures. Is it possible that we can include the annexures as well or not?
I have a list, my side, members, 127 to 137, 138 to 148. But I will at this stage, seeing that Member Mackenzie is making a proposal, suggest that I table the entire vote and we can always open up rounds. Is everyone in order? So members, the entire vote is now tabled. We are more than welcome to take a round. I will take the first round in 2 minutes, and we can obviously see how our questions overlap and answers are provided moving forward. So Member Bartman, Member Kama, Member Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, my question is on page 144, but it actually also links to an answer that was given right at the end in the previous round regarding Laingsburg and Beaufort and the law enforcement officers. So in both Beaufort and Laingsburg, and I'm not sure if it's the same name, if the youth safety ambassadors and the law enforcement officers are the same thing, but the youth safety ambassadors specifically that were allocated to those 2 municipalities, some of them have reached out to me to ask whether their contracts are going to be renewed. And since I see that the program is going ahead within the particular budget vote, I just wanted to find out what the plan is after the end of the current financial year going into the new financial year, because that particular program is quite useful within our communities for when a youth have, for example, not decided yet what to do with the year once they've concluded their grade 12. And that program has assisted in ensuring that they also stay off the streets, and have assisted with schools and with neighborhood watches and CPFs to have more capacity, as well as with the police. The other question relating to the same program, the law enforcement officers in Laingsburg, specifically, the particular law enforcement officers came to speak to the former MEC within Laingsburg around, I think it was either October or November. And their concern was they are essentially getting their contract through the municipality specifically or something like that. And because of that and the way that their contracts were structured, SAPS were complaining, the head of SAPS in Laingsburg was complaining that they don't have any legislative authority to really work with them in that particular regard. And they asked if their contract contracts and the way they are appointed essentially just be amended so that SAPS has that link with the law enforcement officers so that they can work more hand in hand together. Because otherwise what some municipalities like the Laingsburg municipality would then tell SAPS is, no, they can't help you because they have no legislative link to you. And that's quite concerning since that was the reason they were appointed in the first place. Thank you.
Hartman, we now have Member Kama.
Thank you very much, Chair. My first question would be on, I think, page 141. 141. Yes, on the table 9.2. I see there, Chair, that in terms of that sub-program safety promotions, that there's been a decrease, sorry, in the budget, and I want to understand what informs that decrease in light of what you would have also, I think, said earlier, Chair, around what we see now as a rise of an attack towards whether it's your law enforcement officers or your subs members. The other question that I have is on page 150, table A2, on the consultants and professional. I just want to check perhaps the reasons for the increase of the increase there, which is over 200%. Then the other question that I have, Chair, which links to your LEAP program once again, is in terms of your policy development. If we can just get an update, because I remember one of our committees, HOD, the difficulty that we had raised is our ability as a committee to really exercise oversight over this LEAP program, such that I think I saw someone posted, I think maybe Chair might have seen it also, someone posted about a team of about 25 vehicles of law enforcement officers that went to evict one person who had moved out, by the way, of the property of Communicare. And there have been concerns around the law enforcement officers and perhaps also speak to that. And if we can later get a sense, Chair, whether it's written as to what are the detailed roles that the department itself plays in terms of this LEAP program. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. My question is on page 150, and that will obviously cover the sub-programs. If we look under advertising, I'll leave advertising, under catering, from the main appropriation, then if the revised was 1.4 and now again 1.1 and 1.4 million. Similarly on consultants from 350, now 1.2 million, 200% increase. What are we spending that on? And the agency and outsourced services, because that's different to the transfers to municipalities, on the 46 million, initially 51 million, then 46 million, now 33 million. If you can just get some of the reasons therefore too. And then similar to the inventory other supplies, what is inventory other supplies? If we can just get from the CFO, what is that exactly? And then on the property payments, I presume that's rental. If we can just get an indication on the 34 million to 38 million, that's what I presume it's a rental cost. What is that increase? Thank you, Chairperson. Then I'm covered.
Member McKenzie, HOD and Minister, I think that is the round. I might have a follow-up later, but I do also note in page of 144, and it latches onto the question posed by Member Bartman, that the amount allocated to job creation And I think Member Bartman alluded to the fact that it is such an amazing opportunity for young people to get experience, to gain knowledge and training as well. It will be highly appreciated if you are able to elaborate on that. I remember, if I remember correctly, there was a once-off payment for that particular program. But if you are able to clarify it in that and the training as well, and the job readiness that they are now at a certain point, which they were not a year ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chair and members. I will answer, and I will also ask some of the team to also assist. So in terms of the first question by Honourable Member Bartman on the law enforcement officers and the safety ambassadors. So the safety ambassadors and law enforcement officers are not one and the same. The law enforcement officers, as you indicated, are employed by the municipality, and the safety ambassadors, as you indicated, Honourable Chair, was a once-off allocation that we received from Provincial Treasury for the work opportunities to be provided to the youth. We then appointed the safety ambassadors. It was at approximately 1,000 safety ambassadors were employed and provided with a work opportunity and were placed mainly in schools across the province. However, we did not receive another allocation from Provincial Treasury to continue with that program. The program is thus ending this month. We will, however, continue with our work opportunities for chrysalis youth and place the chrysalis youth in communities, and the Department of Community Safety pays that stipend for up to 2 years. Also, the Chrysalis Academy has created youth hubs in many areas across the province. That's to provide further support to youth. I will ask the Chief Director, David Kutsia, and any of the team members to come in terms of training provided to the safety ambassadors. I am aware that training was provided at the Chrysalis Academy, and to provide them with an opportunity for that period of a year and pay them a stipend. But then we also gave them training in terms of, as you indicated, job readiness, etc., to further empower them and to create opportunities of future prospects for them. In terms of the question, Honourable Member Kama, in terms of the reduction in safety promotion, that is also as a result of what we called a hotspot project, separate from the area-based teams, etc. It was also contract for a year, and that has come to an end, and therefore the reduction. However, the department will be advertising, or it's probably gone out this morning, contract post as well, because there is a need to have capacity. So we've advertised 5 contract posts and 3 permanent posts in the bulletin this morning. In terms of the consultants and professional fees, I'm going to ask the CFO to come in there. In terms of the oversight over law enforcement, Honourable Member Kama, and well as policy development, etc. So the incident that you refer to in terms of the number of vehicles, etc., that was not LEAP officers, but I'm assuming, I'm not aware of the incident, law enforcement officers linked to the city. But just on a positive note, in relation to what we all have identified as a gap in terms of oversight over law enforcement, and it's not just in the Western Cape, but countrywide. On the 24th of January, there was a meeting that the Premier hosted with the National Minister as well as the Executive Mayor of the city, together with the Premier and then their respective teams, including myself. And it was decided at that meeting that we will work together as the three spheres of government to look at this gap of oversight. So the province was tasked to coordinate this meeting. I coordinate the meeting between the three. We had a very fruitful meeting, and we have, so we're looking at options, whether it would be changing the IPID Act or whether this would be under the Municipal Systems Act to assist, because we were given a legal opinion that we could not just include oversight over law enforcement in terms of the Community Safety Act. So there is a will from all the role players that we will address this gap. We will be having a follow-up meeting in person. The National Minister was represented by his legal advisor, SAPS as well, the PC, and then both the city's ED and our department as well. So we will be taking this discussion forward because we do see it as something that we need to address urgently. There is a need for law enforcement officers, but we have to create a legislative framework for oversight for them, which would also impact on the rest of the country as well. I'm going to ask the CFO to come in also in terms of the catering and consultants, the agency support, etc., the table on 150 that was referred to. Thank you.
Thank you, HOD, and Honourable Chair and members. So starting at the top of that table, there was a question relating to advertising, which has seen a drop of 15% from the previous year. And this is more us moving away from advertisements relating and communications relating to COVID. And focusing more on the business of the department as in pre-pandemic times. That is the reason behind that reduction. Consultants and professional services. This is for research to be undertaken within the Safety Information and Research Directorate, where there is an anticipated uptake in the research projects on its own. Agency support, outsourced services. Here we see a reduction in the YSAP program, where we are looking to outsource our youth work program in this coming financial year, but minus the YSAP element of that particular project. Inventory, clothing material and accessories, those relate that budget line item plus the one below it, which relates to inventory other supplies, is for equipment for neighborhood watch. And what happens in this instance is that when the neighborhood watches get accredited, they get issued with a toolkit and some clothing in mostly sweaters, bibs, jackets. So those two lines are then our procurement exercises in terms of those items. The last one that relates to property payments, and that is really where we allocate our spending for our security contracts for the financial year. That's the amount that goes into that line. Thank you, Chair.
Members, is there any follow-up questions specific to your initial questions for the second batch of pages? I see Member Mackenzie, Member Kama, and Member Winvogel.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just want to get an understanding of what are we advertising as a department? If we can just get a click, because we're spending 5 million on advertising. And then for the avoidance of doubt, so the Safety Ambassador program is coming to an end at the end of this month, to make clear. And has it been communicated to those individuals that their contract won't be extended? And you mentioned the EYPW program or something like that. If I can just get a better understanding of it, the youth program or something. Are some of these people going to that program or must apply to that program? Are they just completely off the system? You can just give a better understanding. And then I understand the property payments, but it increased by 4 million. So what is the additional 4 million for? That was the question. Perhaps I didn't put it properly. And then the inventory and other supplies, understand. Sorry, I'm not sure I understand correctly. You're giving, that's for the neighborhood watches that you're giving? And then is that part of the 5.9 million that we spoke about earlier on? Was that separate? If I can just get an understanding of that. Thank you, Chair.
No, thanks, Chair. I don't know whether I'm affected by the day of the week or what is happening. My follow-up is around. No, it's Friday. No, I want to follow up on this question of the leap, and so that I understand. Is there a difference in gear in terms of leap officer and the law enforcement officers that were always there? Because every time the MACO member in the city, when he talks about leap officers, that is with their law enforcement officers, those gentlemen with the law enforcement office, and there are different units to that. And the understanding that I have, HOD, is that they are reporting in the same structure in terms of the city and the same chief and everyone. Was in one committee, Chair, and it was in relation to the evictions. I once asked a question as to, are we also using these leap officers that we have paid for as the province in these evictions? And the answer was yes. And that's the challenge, Chair, that and I want the HOD to react to this comment, because also when we ask about deployment of leap officers, because the understanding was that we are targeting these areas that are highly affected by crime. But the answer, and I've noticed, is the department is clear when it says we deploy when the need arises, which means these officers are not stationed there. The case of Manenberg, Chair, the deployment of LEAP that is in Manenberg now, they were not there in Manenberg. There are other areas where members of the public ask us, where are these LEAP officers that we talk about? You know? But from time to time, on a lighter note, Chair, I can tell you that wherever the MACO member is, there are many officers next to him. And they are not where we're supposed to be. And we're spending a lot of this budget. That's why I'm really focusing on this point. A lot of this budget that is in front of us, we're spending on LEAP officers. And people continue to, in Khayelitsha, 5 people were murdered last week. So are we really complimenting? Because we said these are extra boots on the ground to assist SAPS, you know? And if Chair, as a follow-up, we can really check whether there was any involvement of these LEAP officers, and specifically also in the program of the evictions that are linked to communicate and all these other programs, because we need them where they're supposed to be. Thanks, Chair.
Before I see Member Bartman, it might also be useful if we are able to get a briefing, HOD and Minister, regarding the deployment, where we are able to see for the last 3 months, for example, all the activities that they have undertaken, and we are able to zoom in specifically. I think that will also be very helpful. I see Member Bartman, Member Van Vogel, and welcome Member Pat Lekker.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, regarding the youth safety ambassadors, and also thank you for just the clarification there. It's a very sad day for me to hear that it's going to be ending, because when you create a program like that, And in any private sector, in any private company, when you create something like this, you need an exit strategy. So any business model out there, you need an exit strategy. And I don't think there is an exit strategy here regarding the youth safety ambassadors, because you can't simply employ someone for a year on a contract basis and then the program ends. And yes, they've developed some of these skills, but some of these youth don't have jobs going forward. And I think another example of a program like this is the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, where, yes, we're creating employment opportunities, we're creating ways to assist schools and some of our other departments in staying safe and our communities in staying safe, but we need an exit strategy. And compared to the 400 million rand that we're transferring to the metro, I do think it would be a drop in the bucket to assist, for example, in Laingsburg, there's 13 youth safety ambassadors. In Beaufort, I think there are about 20, and I think the full complement, if I heard correctly, was about 1,000 across the province. So I do think that if we can apply an objective criteria, move the program back to the department, but also then attach an exit strategy in order to phase the program out over, for example, 2 financial years, so that we can ensure that when the youth exit the program, that they are moving into another opportunity, whether it is permanent employment somewhere in the private sector, whether it's going to university to study, whether it's perhaps even applying to SAPS to become a police officer. But we do need to think of some of these youth programs that we are creating, that we are getting once-off funding for, to make sure that we have an exit strategy. We would not allow this in the private sector to fund a business model through a bank without an exit strategy. So we need to look at this more carefully even within our departmental votes. And if we can maybe have some thinking around this going forward, because it does concern me, because what are we going to tell the youth in our constituencies going back, giving them feedback on the vote, that actually in a month, 2 months' time, you're not going to have anywhere to go? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Member Van Vogel.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, mine is, but before that, I'm not sure if I'm missing or what is happening today with me, but Member Kama asked a question about the 20-watt cars to evict one person. I really want to know the view of the minister in a team, HOD, on that issue, because I didn't capture that. But my question is, Chair, on page 143, point of reference, Western Cape Police Ombudsman. I want to know, is the office quarterly staffed, and what is the number of high-profile investigations that were undertaken? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Van Vogel. Member Pat Lekker.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Chair, I think I've got just a few questions. One would be whether we have the TORs for these area-based teams, or any documents that has an indication of their role. Can that be provided to the House? But 2, linked to that, Chair, can we then perhaps ask that maybe we get a presentation around this quarterly basis? But also, where is the accountability for the funds that we give out to those? But also, maybe, Chair, the last one, which is a great concern for us as the ANC, is that we keep on pouring money to something that we do not have oversight of. And I think it's a bit unfair, not only to processes of Parliament, but also in terms of financial accountability. If you give out money to something that you don't have oversight for, you really find yourself in a predicament that you won't be able to escape out of it. And I think this thing of the LEAP officers really needs to be looked into in terms of finances, but also in terms of us as members of this parliament, as far as accountability is concerned and oversight is concerned. It's really unfair, and maybe I must say it's illegal. It's illegal. It has been smuggled in a wrong way to say we're giving money to the municipalities for LEAP officers, and at the end of the day, we don't have full oversight to it. I think we really need to be honest to ourselves and ask, are we doing justice? Is this what we're doing proper? Giving just money and people don't have to come and account over the monies that we're pouring to. I think at the end of the day, we really need to even suspend this one. Even though it is for a good cause, if you can't bring those people to account, then it is something else. I don't know. Maybe someone else, for a lack of a better word, will call it thuggish. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Lekker. It is a Friday. I have allowed you to make your comment and input. However, this committee, we do exercise oversight. And I do know that we are always happy to see you in our committee, but there's definitely oversight. There is a number of parliamentary questions that a number of members in this committee have asked. We do oversight in the sense of holding the department accountable. We have had the City of Cape Town in our committee as well, where we interrogate and discuss matters regarding LEAP, regarding Metro Police as well. We have the South African Police Service here, and we are in terms of oversight. And I do know that I don't want to take exception to what you have said, but in terms of being honest and what you've said and the remarks, I do want to assure you that we would want you to be part of our committee. You are more than welcome to join in, but there's definitely oversight and that will continue moving forward. But I will allow the department to respond accordingly, and if the minister wants to make any remarks in that regard as well.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. So I'll deal with the LEAP matter and then also in relation to the issue of the oversight and the ABTs, etc. So Honourable Member Karma, you are right in terms of the uniforms that are worn. LEAP officers are law enforcement officers. However, the province or the Department of Community Safety funds the LEAP officer program, not the law enforcement program. I also want to reassure you, Honourable Member Karma, yes, during the COVID times, the LEAP officers were used for other purposes, but I can reassure you now that is no longer the case. The LEAP officers are based in mainly the murder stations. They are working under the command and control of the SAPs. And for the benefit of all the members, I am going to list the areas in which the LEAP officers are deployed. It's Delft, Khayelitsha, Mitchell's Plain, Harare, Bishop Lavis, Hanover Park, Atlantis, Guguletu, Kraaifontein, Mfuleni, Nyanga, Philippi East, and Samora Machel. These are the 13 areas where the LEAP officers are deployed under the command and control of the SAPs. The reaction unit, Honourable Member Karma, is the response unit that is not a static unit. So the areas in which I mentioned, the 13 are static deployment in those areas. The reaction unit is made up of the 66 members, which we move around. Therefore, as I indicated, Elsie's River and Manenberg are not part of the 13 areas. You will note most of these areas are the areas which had the highest rate of murder. And so the reaction unit can move throughout the city in any area, but there has to be an agreement between myself and the ED of the city before there's any deployment in any other area. And if they are deployed to any area, it is because there's a flare-up in the area, not of evictions or invasions, but linked to crime in that specific area, and specifically murders or gang violence, etc. If I can then move over to Honourable Member Lekker's question, because it is tied in with that. In terms of oversight, and I did indicate, we have legislative frameworks for oversight in terms of the SAPs, in terms of municipal police services, but there's no legislative framework for the law enforcement oversight, of which we are addressing together with the National Minister's Office as well. And it's just not a gap in terms of this province, but nationally as well in that. However, that having been said, we have a transfer payment agreement with the city. We have a business plan with the city. The city has to report to us on an ongoing basis on how they are spending their money, on their operations. And as the Honourable Chair said, it would be good for us to have a sitting where we present to you on exactly what the LEAP officers are doing and exactly our role. We are managing and monitoring on a day-to-day basis where they are deployed, their actions, together with the SAP. So none of the LEAP officers are engaged in activities like evictions, etc. The monies and funds that are paid over to them, they have to account for the monies that are paid. As the Honourable Chair said, the Standing Committee has called them, but we also have to account to Provincial Treasury. The city has to account to us on their spending. They have to provide us with expenditure reports and operational reports. And you will note in our APPs for this year, we've also included a financial analysis report, which is a new APP indicator that we've included. So we know we actually, it's part of our normal day-to-day business. It's a new indicator in our APPs. In terms of the area-based teams, in our current year's APPs, and not going forward into the new year, our current year APPs, you will note the ABTs are reflected in many indicators. We can definitely also present, make a presentation, Honourable Chair, on the area-based teams as well. There have been no funds transferred to area-based teams. In terms of Honourable Member Winfokel's question in relation to the vehicles that were present, that was not the LEAP program. I'm not aware of that particular incident that Honourable Member Karma mentioned, but that must have been a city operation independent of our LEAP deployment and the province. In terms of the number of staff and the high-profile investigations of the Ombudsman, Honourable Chair, if you'll allow us to provide that information after the sitting. We do not have the numbers readily available, and also we will request information from the Ombudsman in terms of his high-profile investigations, which are contained in his annual report, which we do not have currently with us. In terms of the question of Honourable Member Bartman, in terms of the safety ambassadors, Honourable Member Bartman, at all given times, the safety ambassadors were informed that this was a program that was only running for a period of a year. We obviously asked Provincial Treasury for any additional allocation to continue. It's 1,000 safety ambassadors. It's for a department that has a limited budget, without a specific allocation for that purpose, we're unable to continue. However, we have sent letters, Honourable Member Mackenzie, to every one of the safety ambassadors, as well as the placement into institutions where they are placed. We've also encouraged the schools and the municipalities in which they served to actually continue paying them a stipend. It was not a formal employment, it was a work opportunity where stipend is paid. We have encouraged, and some of the municipalities are taking up the safety ambassadors. We also fund municipalities, so we're asking them to please utilize some of the funding that they have, we have allocated to them, where they want to retain the safety ambassadors, to use the funding to that end. Also, I just want to also say the Safety Ambassador Program is also similar to the work opportunities we provide to the chrysalis graduates. It's also a work opportunity linked to the expanded public works program that cannot run, for example, for more than 2 years over a 5-year period. It's a stepping stone. It's not meant to be formal long-term employment. It's to give the youth exposure. It's to give them some experience so that they can then position themselves for other employment prospects. And I just want to cover the issue of the training, Honorable Chair, that we exposed the safety ambassadors to. It was personal development training, workplace readiness, skills training, interview skills, CV preparation, personal mastery, and then trauma releasing as well, because we recognize that many of the youth have experienced trauma in their short lives, and we gave them coping skills to manage that as well. Honorable Chair, I know there were some questions in relation to the tables as well, and if I can please then hand over to the CFO if he'd like to add anything in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, HOD, and Honourable Member, Chair, and Member Mackenzie asked follow-up questions on some of the responses given. I'm going to refer the query on advertising, what our advertising projects are, to the Director, Strategic Services and Communication. But with regards to the Neighbourhood Watch supplies or inventory comprising the toolkits as well as the clothing items, that those two amounts are definitely part of the 5.9 million allocated to the Neighbourhood Watch for the new financial year. And then the increases on the property payments, which I mentioned, was for the security contracts. That increase is an annual legislated increase through the oversight body of security of the security industry. It's the PCERA increases that comes through on an annual basis, which we are obliged to implement as part of our contract with the service providers. So that accounts for the increase then year on year on that line. Thank you, HOD. Thank you, Chair. Saif?
Thank you. Oh, so sorry.
Thank you, CFO Chairperson, and honourable members. There are covariance of elements that make up the advertising. One of the main spends is the monthly departmental radio program, which includes the thematic and topical issues. Most of the advertising is social media based and audio based, radio visual based. None of it is actually printing unless it's internally generated. We also focus on campaigns and gender-based violence advocacy and information. Some of the campaigns would focus on Youth Month, Women's Month, Human Rights Month, 16 Days of Activism. This year in particular and last year, we did not focus on any human rights issues, but a greater focus on 16 days of activism and Women's Month. This also includes compliance ads, all human resources ads, tenders, all advertisements for gazettes, and also policy issues if there are any inputs to acts that require certain compliances. It also, this financial year, and probably if any changes are made to our entity in terms of the board, it included advertising for the Western Cape Liquor Authority. And I have mentioned tenders, and I have mentioned some of the programs that we would recruit on. For example, the Youth Safety Ambassador Program, if we're wanting to recruit or share information around our programs for access, it would include all of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, members. I note 2 hands that are still up. We are currently standing at 11 o'clock. Members, I do want to state for the record that due to a number of reasons, and as I've indicated even this morning, the catering for the break is sadly not available today. I say that knowing that I probably need coffee, also knowing that Mr. Simeon George is very close. I don't know what he would have, but are we able to proceed? Members online, are we able to proceed? Is HOD and Minister? Member Kama? So we will proceed. And then the entire vote has been tabled earlier on. Is there any follow-up question? I see 2 hands that is still online, but I just want to make one recommendation or suggestion, HOD, and I'm not wanting to give the relevant official within the department extra work, but are we able to look at the list of safety ambassadors and ascertain if a percentage of them already is looking at going somewhere else to find employment, seeing that they would have known that it's coming to an end? If we have and then see what some municipalities are saying in terms of what the department is reaching out to them to possibly employ. Would that potentially be possible? I know it's a big task.
Just a little bit concerned, Chair, with creating an expectation for them in terms of if we reach out and ask, have you been? Because we obviously are unable to continue because we haven't received an allocation. However, and I don't know if Minister wants to come in, but the municipalities actually contacted us to indicate, what can they do? Can they remain, there? But we thought it would be very unfair to choose some and not others. Therefore, we encourage the municipality to actually, rather they utilize funds, in some instances, unspent funds, to actually then contract directly with the safety ambassadors. I also would be concerned about creating a perception that we're not doing the same for the chrysalis graduates, because they end up with exactly the same situation, with due respect, Honourable Chair, where they know time comes to an end. And if we're going to do it for the safety ambassadors, then there's also the chrysalis graduates that, have contracts ended time and time again over the years, that we need to also then afford them that type of opportunity as well. I know it's a difficult one, and one doesn't want to sound heartless, but we did ask Provincial Treasury when our former Minister Fritz was here, and it wasn't a program that's ending now because we have a change in minister of any, Minister Fritz had informed the safety ambassadors that it was for a year, and we also repurposed some of our departmental funding to be able to give them a full opportunity for a whole year. We put our own money towards that to top up what Provincial Treasury had given us. We did ask in our previous MTech processes for Provincial Treasury to continue funding it. We had actually even put out an advertisement to outsource payments to them, because we were hoping that the program will continue. We had to even withdraw our advertisement because the number reduced then from, it was safety ambassadors and chrysalis graduates, because we wanted our staff that process payments to be more involved in service delivery and on the ground, and therefore we thought we'll outsource it. So we had to pull the tender because the number had to be reduced minus the safety ambassadors. So I'm a little bit they have been reaching out, and where they reach out, we have been addressing it. And we've asked, trying to encourage the municipalities and the schools, but in the absence of not taking on all of them for another year or 3 months or any period, it's difficult to pick and choose, and we don't want any unfairness, you know. I'm not sure if Minister wants to add. I said a mouthful.
Wil Minister byvoeg?
What I can say is that we can provide a list of all the opportunities that we provided to this youth safety ambassadors, where they can apply or where they, especially in the case as well, for year beyond programs. So we can apply those advertisements if you want to see that.
Thank you so much. My high school teacher told me, you look at the table, there's different sides to a table. We all see a different side. So thank you. I think in the light of our discussion, it is highly appreciated, HOD and Minister, for the clarity in that regard. In this committee, Minister, you will note, but you with us in that we want to engage, we want to have frank conversations and look at possible solutions. So thank you so much. I still note 2 hands that are raised online, and I will first go to the honorable members online and then note those in the chamber. Member Pat Lecker. Member Van Vogel. Member Mackenzie. Kama, do you have any follow-up questions? The entire vote has been tabled. Our procedural officer will accordingly lower all hands that is currently raised online.
No, thanks, Chair. I don't know if this question was asked, but on the 137 on the Liquor Authority, I just want to check there. I think, you know, the Liquor Authority is one of the entities that always has challenges in terms of budgetary constraints. And I see that in the 2021-22 year, in terms of the adjusted appropriation, they were 48 million, and now it's 45. And I just want to get a sense, Chair, as to what might be the impact of this on the entity, especially on its capacity to conduct the inspections timeously as expected. And the other question, Chair, on 130, it's more of a clarity. On 130, I think on top of 130, the department says it will continue to fund the following projects in support of creating safer communities over the 2021 MTEF. I want to focus on the second point there, Chair, of provisioning of the latest technology relating to safety and security. I just want to get a sense as to what is this technology that we are talking about, and perhaps whether are we in the future looking at, I think one, Chair, partnership that we can always support, you know, is one that looks at the CCTV program of the city, where I think by now everyone knows that there are times where when an incident has happened already and you want to go and check and you are told that they see that the camera does not work anymore. And part of the questions that we would have sent are whether is the city or does the system inform the city when a camera stops working immediately, or it's a case of the city going to check it at a later stage. I don't know what technology they are using. So I just want to get a clarity around this technology that we're talking about. and perhaps a sense of what budgetary provisions are we providing for this particular project. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, Honourable Member Karma. So on page 137, that reduction there to the Liquor Authority is only because we paid the 4.4 million in the adjustment budget already. Therefore, that is showing that a 5% reduction. I'm going to hand over to Acting Chief Director Watkins to answer on the technology, and maybe he'll be so bold to share some of our future plans, Fred, and our vision in terms of our technology for the province.
Thank you, HOD. Thank you, Chairperson. Member Karma, yes. What we're planning to do in the technology space is actually integrate that with our physical security. And we currently have in the CBD, apart from the City of Cape Town, they're a system on their own. We have three what's commonly known as control rooms, monitoring 44 of the Western Cape government buildings. The city, unfortunately, has the mandate to do the public space. However, we are looking at developing what's called an emergency center. We are in discussions with the Disaster Management Center to actually activate such a center where all the CCTV from the rural areas as well as our CCTV can integrate. So I think you'd appreciate the fact that everybody's got different systems, so integration is not that easy. However, we have done a little bit of homework and found that if it's an IP system, an internet-based system, then we would just need a cooperation agreement with the current users in order to pull it into one central point. That's the one part. The other part is communication. I think CCTV monitoring is only one phase. Without proper response to what has been noticed, it actually means nothing. So we're also trying to establish then a centralized communication or radio communication with all the different districts. And that is what we're planning now in the future. In terms of budget for this year, on page 146, you'll see under the item machinery and equipment, the 6 million. On page 146, machinery and equipment is 6126. That is for the technology space. Thank you, member. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, members. I'm going to go one further round for the last set before we open up for members of the public. But before I do that, I have not received any written request for public input today, nor have we received any written correspondence. Member Pat Lecker, I see you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just one quick one. I would like to find out as to, in respect of the closure of or the end of the Safety Ambassadors project, can we get numbers as to how many young people would lose their jobs as a result of the end of the Safety Ambassadors project? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Lecker. I think that has been ventilated, but I will allow the HOD to reply. But I do want to also state for the record that it is an end of contract, which does not technically relate to losing a job per se, even though I think we all understand the situation. We all understand we're in a province where in some of our rural areas, and Member Bartman also indicated that there's young people in Beaufort West as well as in Laingsburg. And I think that is a sense of where we are at as per, but I would allow the HOD or the Minister to respond.
At any given point, the maximum number was 1,000. The contracts have already ended, but we would be able to, to work out what, because there were at times exits and new persons entering. So I don't know exactly at this moment how many were in their positions. I'm not sure if CF or Burford can answer that in terms of how many were currently on the program, because it did fluctuate. And I'm told it's 926. And as I indicated, we encouraged the municipalities to try and absorb them and to utilize where possible the monies that we had transferred to the municipalities to be able to do so. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you so much. We are now at the closure for members. In terms of our discussions, we have asked questions to the department across the various programs, across the entity. I will now, for the record, request if there's any member of the public that is online. Mr. Wasim Matthews, are you able to confirm?
Chairperson, there are no members of the public online calling to.
Thank you so much. As I've indicated, this is a public meeting in terms of the appropriations, and we have, in terms of our rules, opened the floor to engagement. I will now allow for closing remarks, and I asked the minister who must go first in the week, because I'm never sure. The HOD, no one wants to talk after the minister, or should the minister first speak? So I leave it up to you, and then Member Mackenzie will be doing the vote of thanks from on behalf of the committee, and he might sing for the Premier of the Western Cape, who is celebrating his birthday today, the man that implemented the safety plan that Member Kama is vigorously exercising oversight over.
Thank you, Chairperson. The HOD graciously declined her opportunity, so I'm going to speak. Thank you, Chairperson, and the members of the Standing Committee for this constructive oversight over our department as the Department of Community Safety. And we are committed to create safer communities and to combat crime in our communities. And thank you to our department, of everyone who's being here. Thanks for coming out. Thank you for the liquor bill representatives. And thank you for this morning. I really find that it was a good conversation. It was an open conversation. I thank you for that. And then, Chair, may I request a photo opportunity, please? Thank you.
Member Mackenzie might want to sing now already. So do you first want to do this before we take the photo?
Yes, please. I'm not going to sing because I don't want to chase people away.
No,
so
no,
I reserve that for another time. But yeah, thanks for the Department of Community Safety or Police Oversight, subject to the presidency. I didn't realize he had to go all that way to change the name of a department. But yeah, that's something you learn every day. We are in difficult times. We are in difficult times. We see the world is in the turmoil at the moment. We see the petrol prices are going up. We see the food prices are going up. I was shocked when somebody said in 3 months' time, the price of bread is likely going to be 40 Rand because of the wheat imports from some parts of Europe that's currently at war. And it shows to the extent that we all are in turmoil and budgets cuts in every department, in every municipality, due to no fault of our own, and a war taking place somewhere else due to none of our fault of our own. and we have to bear the brunt of it. It's quite sad. There's a massive petrol hike coming in April as well. So one of these days, I saw on Facebook somebody said they'll have to run next to their car if they want to get somewhere. And yeah, it's going to be tough, and it's going to be tough. You can imagine the impact on crime in our communities, the impact, and community safety, a very important role to play. So, and we don't underestimate the role that you're playing and the work that you do, particularly in our neighborhood watches and our CPFs, because the neighborhood watches has been, particularly many of our communities, been the eyes and ears of our police. So we do appreciate the additional funding for law enforcement officers because they augment our police and they work with our police in our communities. So thank you to your team because you are the face that our community see and want to know what is community safety doing about these matters. So thank you very much. We do appreciate it. We do appreciate the hard work during very difficult circumstances. The last months, it must well probably the worst month for some of you, but you're still standing, holding your head up, and keep on holding your head up and do your job. So that's what one expects, even in very difficult times. So thank you very much, Minister, and thank you for your team, the HOD, and all of you, and all of the guys in the department that are doing your work. We do appreciate it. Because during a crisis, you can either collapse or you can stand up, and you stand up, and that's important. So thank you. Somebody said fall backwards or fall forward the other day. So you fell forward and we move on. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much to Member Mackenzie and to all the members that is in the House, to those online. If you are able to switch on your camera, it will be highly appreciated so that you can be captured in this particular moment. But we will be remaining here directly after the photo opportunity in order to conclude the committee business.
Member Windvogel, jy lyk al weer anders dan vandag. Baie mooi.
To each and every official, once again, Member Mackenzie said it all. Baie danke. You are now duly excused. I also want to thank our chairperson for the Liquor Governing Board, Mr. Kingwell. Thank you so much for your attendance here today as well.
Thank you, Chair. My pleasure, and glad to be part of a successful team.
Baie dankie. Members, we are now drawing to the end and our committee business that should be concluded. For the record, I am more than happy to take input from each and every member regarding requests for information. However, if there's any particular request, permanent members will be able to then potentially vote on a certain request, but we are open to input from any member. Member Leka, I know that you have vast experience on this committee, so thank you so much. Is there any request for information before we move to the adoption of the report? Mr. Matthews will quickly read out what is currently captured, and if there's something that you want to edit or amend, it will first be Member Bartman, Member Windvogel, and then Member Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chairperson. I've also flighted the information. The committee requests a copy of the department's report on the SAPS services, on the SAPS COVID-19 compliance at police station, a list of the areas to which the area-based teams are deployed. This was answered during the meeting, but perhaps I should just leave it there.
You can give it
in writing as well. A copy of the terms of reference for the area-based teams, a copy of the transversal security provision framework agreement for the 2022-23 financial year, a copy of the investigation report into funding allocated to Laingsburg municipality for the purposes of safety and security in that region. Where applicable, also indicate the mechanisms that the department uses to monitor how recipient municipalities spend funding allocated for the purposes of safety and security. A copy, or perhaps more practically an electronic link to the video of the 2021 K9 unit launch in the Overstrand. A copy of or electronic link to all the updated safety plans drafted per district. Usually these documents are quite large, so a hard copy might be quite voluminous, so electronic link is a possibility. A breakdown of the Department of Community Safety's role in the LEAP program. The breakdown should address updates on the scope of a legislative framework for departmental oversight over the LEAP program, criteria for deploying LEAP officers, as well as all departmental reports on the LEAP program for the 2021-22 financial year. And the number of, should I say, a list of the number of high-profile investigations currently being conducted by the Western Cape Police Ombudsman. And the other 3 points are just items for the committee program.
I see Member Bartman, Member Van Vogel, and Member Lekker. Any member and Member Mackenzie. Deirdre, Member Bartman, are you covered your side?
Thank you, Chair. I took my hand down because I'm covered in terms of the procedural officer's notes. Thanks.
Baie dankie. Member Van Vogel.
Chairperson, Chair, partly mine was also covered in the stuff that was captured by your assistant, Chairperson. But I want to know the possibility that if we can ask the City of Cape Town to come in account for their LEAP program. Because remember, the City of Cape Town is where all the hotspots is, and there's things are just not happening, or it's difficult to do an oversight on these LEAP officers in the City of Cape Town. So if that can perhaps be possible. And then the last one, Chairperson, is on the if it's still on the LEAP officers of program. If we can at least try to agree on a program to strengthen accountability measures over the LEAP program. So actually it is linked to each other. I think I will park there, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Van Vogel. That is totally, we are totally in agreement. I'm totally in agreement with that. We will be at our next ComSafe meeting, also table our draft program for the year. Various members have indicated unannounced visits, like Member Kama, Member Mackenzie has highlighted some stations that we also need to go and visit. So we will be adding that briefing because it's so important. Thank you so much for the clarity in that City of Cape Town should be added in there. Member Mackenzie, are you covered?
Just wanted to add perhaps the list of and they must have provided previously, and if Wasim have it somewhere, it will be great to see probably the list of the accredited neighborhood watches and the list of the neighborhood watches that they're going to fund for this financial year. If you got it somewhere, you can email it to me. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
I just asked that yesterday.
And also the list of the names of the CPS that they're currently funding.
Yeah, so in terms of the CPFs, those that are valid, that would be correct, Member Kama, because they are only able to transfer money once they are. Yes. Members, on that note, do I see
Chair.
any hand online?
Chairperson.
Yes, Member Leka.
Talking about me.
So sorry, Member Leka. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to make a recommendation that the department must provide a business plan with the city LEAP officers and the financial analysis for the program since its inception.
Thank you so much.
Two, the second one, Chair, that we will be provided with the documentation, including the TROs and the financial analysis for the area-based teams.
Thank you so much, Member Leka. I know the last question in that regard was in 2019. So it's vital that we get an update in terms of that business plan and the costing involved for the transfer agreement, payment transfer agreement. Thank you, Member Leka. The cost analysis of the LEAP program. Members, are we happy? Can we now proceed? Member Kama.
Yes, I think in terms of the terms of reference, I think Wasim had read in his list as part of the yes, I think it's there. But I just wanted to say, Chair, perhaps that list of neighborhood watch it's sent to all members. And not only.
Yes, we will add it in there also.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Chair, I think the list that I have is probably outdated, so I'd rather just request an updated list from the department.
Just yesterday, I emailed the HOD to get an updated list for all the neighborhood watches. But we can still add it in over there. Members, on that note, we have concluded our request for information. As indicated in previous budget appropriation committee meetings, that the request for recommendations will form part of the minutes. We will now move over to the report, which will be flighted by Mr. Wasim Matthews. Do I see any hand? I see Member Mackenzie and then Member Bartman.
We support the vote, Chairperson. I support the vote.
We have a motion to move that we support Member Bartman.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to second that motion that we support the particular vote.
Thank you so much. Member Kama, will you triple support that one?
Thank you very much, Chair. In terms of Rule 90, would want the report to indicate that the ANC wishes to express its minority view, not to support the vote.
Thank you so much. I trust that other members would be covered. Members, the report will thus read: the Standing Committee on Community Safety, Cultural Affairs and Sport, having deliberated on the subject of vote for community safety in the schedule of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B2 of 2022, referred to the committee in accordance with Standing Rule 188, reports that it supports the vote. In accordance with Rule 90, the African National Congress expressed its minority view to not support the vote. I trust that that is in order. Thank you, members in the House, for confirming. It will duly be signed and submitted to the Budget Committee. Members, on that note, once again, it's Friday. To those that's in the House, I want to apologize again for the disruption in terms of not having the catering for us to deal with the catering. We have a set of minutes that we need to adopt.
Yes, Chairperson. It's the report on the annual report for docs. Remember, it was tabled quite late. And then the corresponding minutes with that, and then there are 2 sets of minutes from last week.
Members, are we able to do it now so we know it's done? So the one report is in terms of the docs annual report. During that particular committee, because there was a dispute with the AG, we then had that particular one in January. Myself and Member Kama would have been duly present in that particular. Member Kama, I think it's for us to have a view of this, which is fairly standard, but it will be circulated as well, where we requested information, but we dealt with the annual report. Member Kama, are you willing to move?
I move that we adopt the
I will
report,
then
Chair.
second. Thank you so much. And last week will be the very first meeting that the new formulated standing committee in terms of its permanent members. Oh, it's just the minutes of that January one. I will confirm the minutes is in accordance with the report. Member Kama?
I move that we adopt, Chair.
Thank you so much. And to confirm, Mr. Wasi Matthews, so in terms of our budget meetings for next week, which was tentatively scheduled, that will be accordingly removed from the program.
Yes, Chairperson.
Minutes for 3 March. The minutes are fairly standard as per the meeting. We have a list of resolutions that we have taken and a recommendation. Thank you so much, Member Mackenzie, and then Member Bartman. Member Bartman.
Apologies, I didn't hear Member Mackenzie in the House. I was waiting for him to go first.
Oh.
I second then that we adopt the minutes.
Thank you so much. Members, the very last one for this Friday. I trust that there's no further budgets this afternoon. Or would there be? Yes, the second, 4th of March. Everyone is present except Member Christians as per the
This is the interviews.
Yes, this is the interviews.
Oh yes, no, I move that we adopt, Chair.
Yes. Thank you so much. Also, members, between now and next week or before we meet, even if it's a instant message or if it's a discussion we can have when we see each other regarding activities and oversights, like to the Liquor Authority, to the DNA, FSL Lab, to the Ombudsman, we will look at capturing all of that in our draft meeting plan for the year ahead. Thank you so much, Wasim Matthews. Ms. Mary Ann Burgess, baie danke, and our IT support. To those that watched online, thank you so much. Tot ziens, members.
Thank you. Bye.